Hello my friends, in today's video we will take a look at the best cameras that I've tested in 2021. I think that this year was pretty good in terms of the new camera releases, some of which I have also managed to review. Just to be clear, this list will only contain cameras that I've personally reviewed this year. Let's start with the most anticipated camera of the year, which is Sony A7 IV. After 4 years of waiting, the expectations were naturally very high. Sony has fulfilled the majority of these expectations. First of all, A7 IV provides the best output of all hybrid cameras in the category, and it is quite future-proof thanks to the new 33-megapixel sensor. Now that the RAWs are compatible with Lightroom, I can confirm that the ISO performance and the dynamic range is great as expected. It uses a lot of technology from A7S III. That includes Sony's latest autofocus system, which is basically perfect. All of the usual Sony strengths such as the compact size, great battery life or accurate colors were also carried over. A huge improvement over the A7 III are the video codecs, including 4K 60p in 10-bit 422. The video itself is downsampled from 7K and it is the most detailed 4K video that I've ever seen. Other improvements such as the new menu system, separate stills and video settings, or incredible focus breathing compensation are very welcome as well. It is not perfect though. A disappointment is 1.5 times crop in 4K 60p video. 4K 60 still looks really good otherwise, so the main inconvenience will be the change of the field of view. The display resolution is pretty low and 10 frames per second continuous shooting is not particularly impressive either. Despite that, I still think that it is the best camera in class by a solid margin. Next up is the best camera that I've ever tested, which is Fujifilm GFX100S. The main highlight of GFX100S is the new 102-megapixel 44mm sensor. It captures incredible amount of detail and it provides the best image quality that I've ever seen. GFX100S also fixes basically all of the annoyances of older 44mm cameras such as subpar autofocus, poor video specs, or no in-body image stabilization. It has very solid hybrid autofocus system which is on par with X-E4 and more than good enough for all-round use. It can also shoot 4K 10-bit 420 video, which has that 44mm look, including very solid amount of detail. Despite that it is mainly presented as a stills camera, I am sure that some GFX100Ss will mainly be used for video. The in-body image stabilization is crucial with this kind of resolution. Fortunately, it is one of the best IBIS systems that I've ever used, which is mighty impressive. It can shoot 5 frames per second with autofocus continuous, which means that it is not painfully slow. I am also a big fan of GFX100S body style, which has very good controls and ergonomy, and it isn't any bigger than most full-frame DSLRs. I will admit right away that I am a huge fan of this camera, and I am considering entering the GFX system in 2022. I have also tested the GFX50S2, but this camera is severely limited by the old sensor. It uses a lot of good stuff from GFX100S, such as the body and controls and the in-body image stabilization. The old non-BSI 44mm sensor still provides very solid image quality, but it can be surpassed by some full-frame cameras, notably the Sony A7 IV. It is also slow, the autofocus is poor, and the video limited to 1080p isn't even worth mentioning. In my opinion, either go all the way with GFX100S or just get a cheaper and frankly much better Sony A7R IV. Sony A7S III was introduced in 2020, but I have reviewed it in 2021, so I will include it on this list. It definitely didn't disappoint. I wasn't sure about the 12-megapixel sensor, but it makes sense. The video from A7S III is not nearly as detailed as A7 IV video, but it has very classy and filmic ARRI style look. The codecs and the frame rates are basically all that we have ever asked for. It can shoot full sensor 4K up to 120p in 10-bit 422. The only missing video spec is that it can't shoot 4K DCI for some reason. A7S III can also shoot RAW video through HDMI, which is very impressive, but it utilizes Log3 workflow, so you need to know what you are doing. Also worth mentioning is the 9.44mm viewfinder, which is the best that I've ever seen. A7S III is an excellent video camera, and I can highly recommend it to filmmakers looking for something that can provide a very filmic and classy look. Another camera that I've actually bought this year is Sony A7R IV A. The A version is 2021 refresh, which basically means that it has an excellent 2.36mm dot screen. What I like the most about the A7R IV A is an outstanding image quality to size ratio. A7R IV A uses 61 megapixel full-frame backside illuminated sensor, which captures a fantastic amount of detail and dynamic range. I definitely enjoy having this kind of resolution, especially for landscapes and product photography. Importantly, the resolution doesn't really have any major negative effects on the overall usability. The autofocus is still excellent, it can shoot 10 frames per second and very nice 4K video. It is also the only Sony camera that has an excellent 2.36mm dot screen in combination with excellent 5.44mm dot viewfinder. Basically, my only complaint with the A7R IV A is the older menu system, but I can definitely live with that. I think that the A7R IV A will be more popular in upcoming years than it is now, because the 61 megapixel output is significantly ahead of other components of the whole imaging chain. That was also the case with A7R III, which in my opinion makes more sense in 2021 than it did back in 2017. A7R III also got the A update with 2.36mm dot screen and USB-C 3.2. 43 megapixel output from the A7R III is still excellent by 2021 standards, and it will most likely be excellent in 2025 as well. The price is also really good at the moment. There are some aspects of the A7R III that feel a little bit outdated after the A7 IV release. The autofocus is definitely sufficient for all-round use, but the difference between the A7R III autofocus and the latest 759-point system is quite noticeable. The comparison of A7R III and A7 IV is in my opinion an interesting topic, so I'll make a video about that in upcoming weeks. Fortunately, I have only tested one camera under $1,000 this year, and that is Fujifilm X-E4. A very positive surprise for me was that it retains a lot of X100V character. It uses the same X-Trans 4 and X-Processor 4 combination that we know from older Fuji cameras. A big positive is the build quality and premium feeling, which is basically on par with X100V, and it is one of the main reasons why I enjoyed using it. Fujifilm has retained the original X-E concept, which means that the battery is inside of the main frame and there is no space for in-body image stabilization. That is the price for having this kind of classic package. I have tested it with Fujifilm's new 27mm f2.8 lens, which is a really good match. Overall, it is a very good and stylish alternative to X100V for those who want something with interchangeable lenses. I have also tested the Nikon Z6 II this year. It didn't seem to be a major improvement over the original Z6, but multiple smaller improvements make a big difference overall. First of all, the sensor bending or color blending issues that I've experienced with the original Z6 are gone. The still's image quality is now on par with Sony A7 III and Panasonic S1, which is how it is supposed to be. The autofocus is also significantly better. The video specs are a bit underwhelming though. It can only shoot 10-bit video or log externally, which is a bit of a disappointment from a hybrid full-frame camera released in late 2020. My biggest complaint about the Z6 II is actually the handling. Only 2 dials and 6 customizable buttons are simply not enough in my opinion. I also don't like having those 4 small buttons cramped in the bottom right corner. Some UI quirks are also pretty annoying. The battery life is rated for 410 shots, which is below average. On the other hand, the 3.2-inch 2.1 million dot display is excellent. Z6 II is a good camera overall, but it is a bit of a defensive release from Nikon in my opinion. It seems that Nikon was trying to match A7 III capabilities and prevent current Nikon users from switching brands rather than offer real innovation. Z9 seems more than promising though, so I hope that Nikon will also introduce more innovation to the Z6 line in the future. One more Sony full-frame camera that I've tested this year is Sony A7C. In terms of the product philosophy, it is one of my most favorite cameras on the market. Sony has basically packed the A7 III internals into a camera body which is as small as possible. The output from the A7C is basically identical to A7 III, which is a good thing. The packaging of A7C is pretty incredible. The size of this camera is rather shocking. It also has some nice updates over the A7 III, such as the new autofocus system, including touch tracking and real-time autofocus, gyro data capture, or unlimited video recording. The compromises necessary to achieve this size are in my opinion very acceptable. The viewfinder is quite poor, and to be honest, I would leave it out completely. There is also only one SD card slot, which is also acceptable for intended purposes. On the other hand, Sony still managed to retain the in-body image stabilization, which is very solid considering the body size. A7C also has a rotating screen, which I don't mind in this specific case. If you pair the A7C with some small prime, such as 20mm f1.8 or 35mm f1.8, you will get a great travel or street photography combination. I have also tested a lot of pocket and action cameras such as GoPro Hero 10, DJI Pocket 2 and DJI Action 2. I have made a separate video about that and it will be linked in the description. So these were the best cameras that I've tested in 2021. Two cameras that I like the most are Sony A7 IV and Fujifilm GFX100S. A7 IV is very close to being all that we have asked for in a hybrid camera. GFX100S is a great technical achievement and a true no-compromise camera for intended purposes. I hope that this video was somehow useful, and if you are interested in some of these cameras, there are full reviews available on the channel. I will definitely make more camera reviews next year in new locations started in January, so stay tuned. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section, and see you next time.